I'm very happy to welcome Yara, who is a consultant for IAB Europe's Retail Media Committee, to briefly walk us through IAB Europe's important work on retail media standards. And right after that, she will introduce our second panel and the panelists for today. So welcome, Yara.
Thank you, Patricia. And thank you, everyone, for the great insights we've had so far. What I'm going to focus on is a bit more pragmatic. What have we done so far at the IAB, and what else we need to do? And it's really meant to give you an overview of our thinking, and for you all to feed back into what we need to do next. After that, we will be discussing with our panelists their view on the topic, specifically on standardization. Sorry, I'm having trouble sharing my screen, so give me 1 second. Fantastic. Just want to make sure everybody can see my screen now. Okay. So far, we focused on digital in-store, on-site, and off-site in terms of standards. So we've come a really long way. What we did on-site and off-site in the beginning of the year, and we released kind of our measurement standards around March. Everybody has had a chance to input into them, is now going into what we think of as the next logical iteration, which is certification, which I'm going to talk about a little bit. Digital in-store, we've released the formats. We've released the standards earlier like 2 months ago, and right now at the end of October, mid-November, we're going to be releasing our final version of digital in-store standards. So you have a small window to still give us some input. We've gotten really phenomenal input from across the industry, which we're going to be reviewing and putting in to our final digital in-store standards. I just want to focus for a second on something actually Maurits touched on. The in-store retail media definition took some time to agree on and land. And it starts with in-store retail media is the inventory that uses retail data for planning, execution, and measurement, which is available to brands. And one key call out here is that it could be digital or static. And we spent, it might seem obvious now that the definition is out there to the world, but we spent a lot of time with retailers in the room landing on these keywords, because some thought it's only digital. Some thought it's certain iterations of digital, or it's only measurable. And at the end of the day, it needs to be any format for retail media to deliver on the promise Andrew put out there. Now, that being said, we tackled standards in goes, and the first thing we focused on is more of the digital focus, because there's a lot more that we know in terms of how to measure media and outcomes. But that's not to say that we're not going to be talking about printed, static, experiential, because we do think they're pillars of growth for retail media, and we'll be doing that next, or in the future as we go into next year. So just in terms of the formats, we've landed on 5 formats. So digital and screen, that is exactly as it says, audio, and then connected shopping. So think of hand scanners, smart trolleys, things like that. Like we've seen, there's a lot of experiential and printed and static formats that come into play. Things like product sampling are not going away, and they're extremely important, and they'll remain a big part of in-store retail media. So now on going back to the first thing we did in March, which is on-site and off-site standards, we are now very pleased to be in a position, we've announced this today, that we can certify retailers at IAB Europe. We've entered the beta phase. We will be working with a number of audit companies. Those audit companies will be working with a couple of retailers to see if they meet all of the standards that are in the document that was put out there earlier in the year. If they do, then we at IAB Europe will be issuing that certification. What that will mean for the buy side and for the ecosystem in general is that they'll be able to say with certainty which metrics are being reported on, both for media and sales, and at which level consistently across retailers. It's going to take some time. So once we come out of beta, we're going to open it up for any retailer that wants to be certified. It's going to, by the end of next year, we expect to have a good 10 retailers, and obviously for the whole industry to adopt something like that, it would take even longer, but it is a first step for that stamp of approval of what is being measured and at which rate. Our beta partners have been extremely, extremely brave, and we're very happy that we have a couple already that are going on that journey. And hopefully they'll pass, and in January they'll be in a position to talk about what they were certified on. So now going into kind of the next phase, there's a couple of things we want to release this year. So on-site formats is one of them. On-site display formats, I must add. So these are, all of the, maybe in a retail environment, there might be some IAB standard on-site display formats that are being bought programmatically, but there's a lot of custom formats that have proliferated across the industry. And we've heard both from the buy and the sell side, actually from the retailers, it's becoming extremely complex to manage, from the ad tech companies, and then from the brand themselves, that it's hard to buy and it's hard to measure on. So we are kicking off a work stream in the next week or so with a number of ad tech players, retailers, and brands to standardize that. And hopefully we'll have a guideline by January. The other thing that Andrew talked quite a bit about, and I think we all feel quite passionately about, is incrementality. There's a lot of talk about incrementality, and some things are being called incrementality, like a before and after test, that are not incremental. And we at IAB want to come up with at least a standard definition of what incrementality is and some methods that would fall under that category. So that work will be released hopefully in March.